I am 82 years old, and I wake up each morning surprised that my body still agrees to move. Not grateful, not relieved, just surprised. There was a time I thought I would leave this world much earlier, quietly, without much resistance. But I am still here. And that surprises me more than anything I've ever done in my life. My kidneys were failing. That's the word they used, failing. Not failed, not broken, just slowly giving up. Like an old engine that doesn't complain, but doesn't run either. I didn't feel dramatic about it. At my age, things failing is not shocking. It's expected. Organs, memory, relationships, they all thin out eventually. The doctor explained it to me in a careful voice, like he was placing something fragile into my hands. I nodded more than I listened. At some point, explanations stop feeling useful. You already know where things are heading. But something changed. Not all at once. Not like those stories people tell. It was quiet, almost forgettable. I began eating the same 4 foods every day. Not because I was trying to fix anything. I didn't have that kind of energy anymore. It just happened. Boiled lentils, plain yogurt, a handful of soaked almonds, and a small piece of papaya. That was it. No seasoning most days, no variety. Just those 4 things. I didn't choose them carefully. I chose them because they were easy, soft, familiar, gentle on a stomach that had grown tired of arguing with the world. At first, I didn't notice anything. Then I noticed I wasn't as tired. Then I noticed I could walk a little farther without sitting down. Then the doctor noticed something in my reports that he couldn't quite explain. He said my kidneys were stabilizing. That's the word he used. Not improving, not healed, just refusing to decline the way they were supposed to. He looked at me like I was holding back information. I wasn't. I told him what I ate. He wrote it down, slowly, like it might rearrange itself into something more complicated if he looked long enough. But there was nothing complicated about it, just 4 foods. I don't tell this like it's something remarkable. It doesn't feel remarkable from where I'm sitting. It feels like everything else in my life, something I didn't understand when it was happening. That's been the pattern. Understanding always comes late. When I was younger, I didn't think about my body much. It was just there, reliable, quiet. It did what I asked of it without complaint. I worked as a school clerk for nearly 30 years. Not a teacher, just the one who kept records, filed papers, answered questions no one else wanted to answer. It was steady work, predictable. I liked that. I married at 24. He was a decent man, not expressive, not difficult, just present. which at the time felt like enough. We had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Life was not unhappy. It was just full of small postponements. I postponed rest because there was always something to finish. I postponed conversations because there was always a better time. I postponed care of my body, of my relationships, because I thought they would wait for me. That's the thing no one tells you clearly. Most things don't wait. They don't leave suddenly either. They fade quietly, without announcement. My husband used to ask me to sit with him in the evenings. Just sit. No reason. I would say, after I finish this. There was always something to finish. Bills, laundry, lists. He stopped asking after a while. I didn't notice when that happened, not at the time. You don't notice endings when they arrive slowly. My children grew up in that same rhythm. We spoke, we lived together, but there was always a distance I told myself was temporary. I thought closeness could be scheduled later, like a task. Later never arrived in the way I imagined. My son moved away first. Work, he said, opportunity. I told him I understood. I did understand. That's what makes it harder. Understanding doesn't protect you from loss. My daughter stayed longer. She was quieter than her brother, more observant. One evening she said, "You're always busy, even when there's nothing urgent." I laughed at that. I thought she was being dramatic. Now I think she was being precise. She left a year later. There was no argument, no dramatic goodbye, just a gradual shift from daily presence to occasional visits, to phone calls, to silence that didn't feel hostile, just settled. I didn't chase it. I told myself this was normal. Children grow. They build their own lives. That's true. But there's something else that's also true. Distance grows easier the longer you let it exist. By the time you feel it fully, it has already become permanent. My husband died at 68, a heart attack, sudden, they said. There was no time for anything unfinished, no last conversation, no chance to sit down and say the things I had been postponing for years. I remember sitting in the hospital hallway, not crying, just thinking about all the evenings I had said, "After I finish this." I had finished everything except what mattered. After he died, the house became very quiet, not in a peaceful way, in a way that makes you aware of every small sound. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, your own breathing. I thought my children would come closer after that. They didn't. Not because they didn't care, but because we had already learned how to live apart. That kind of learning doesn't reverse easily. Years passed like that. Routine, silence. Occasional visits that felt polite more than personal. I didn't blame anyone, not even myself, not fully. I just noticed. That's what old age is, mostly. Not regret in the loud sense, just noticing what is missing. When my health started declining, it didn't feel unfair. It felt consistent, like everything else. Things slowly stepping away. I didn't fight it much. That's when I started eating those 4 foods. Not as a plan, not as a decision, just because they were simple. There's something about simplicity that arrives late in life. Not because it wasn't available earlier, but because you didn't trust it. You think complexity means value. You think effort means meaning. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the quiet things, the plain things, are the only ones that stay. The lentils, the yogurt, the almonds, the papaya. They didn't promise anything. They didn't demand anything. They just supported me in a way I hadn't supported myself before. The doctor still shakes his head when he sees my reports. He says, it doesn't match what we expected. I don't argue with him. Expectations have been wrong before, many times. I don't think those foods saved me. That would be too simple of a story. I think they arrived at a time when I had finally stopped complicating everything. When I had finally stopped postponing care. Not in a grand way, in a small, repetitive, almost forgettable way. Every day. The same 4 things. No excuses. No delay. There's something honest about repetition. It shows you what you're actually willing to do, not what you plan to do, not what you talk about doing, just what you quietly continue. If I had understood that earlier, I don't know what would have changed. Maybe nothing, or maybe everything. It's hard to measure the life you didn't live. I still think about my husband sometimes, not in a painful way, just in a factual way. He was there, then he wasn't. There were things I could have said, I didn't say them. That's the whole truth. My children call occasionally. We speak politely, carefully. There's no conflict. Just distance that has settled into place like furniture that no one moves anymore. I don't expect it to change. Expectations are heavy. I've learned to put them down. If you're listening to me, I won't tell you what to do. I spent too many years ignoring advice to believe in giving it now. I will only say what I noticed too late. Small things don't stay small if you repeat them long enough. And waiting becomes a habit you don't realize you've built. You think you're delaying something, but sometimes you're quietly deciding it will never happen. I didn't lose my life in a dramatic way. I just distributed it across too many unimportant moments. That's harder to see while it's happening. Easier when there's not much time left to rearrange anything. These days, I sit by the window in the afternoon. I eat my 4 foods. I watch the light change on the walls. It's not a bad life. It's just a quiet one. Quieter than I expected. Quieter than I prepared for. but not empty. There's still something here. Not purpose, not meaning in the big sense, just presence. And that seems to be enough now. If you take anything from this, don't turn it into a rule. Don't turn it into a lesson. Just notice where you're postponing something that doesn't need to wait. Sometimes the body waits. Sometimes people do. But not always. Not for as long as you think. I don't have many years left. That's not a sad statement. It's just accurate. The doctor doesn't say it directly, but I see it in the way he speaks to me now. Slower, softer, like he's already adjusting to my absence. I don't mind. I've had time to adjust too. I will keep eating my lentils, my yogurt, my almonds, my papaya, not because I expect anything from them, just because they've become part of the few things I still do without postponing. And that feels honest. More honest than most of what I did when I had time to do everything.